Is that a word? Aren't? I think it's a word now. 2024. Aren't.
Art's been a word for a long time.
See?
ARN.
But, growing up like back in the 80s and 90s, we were told don't use that word.
Who let this guy on our podcast?
The contraction form for are not has been around for centuries.
Really?
You know what? In fact, we are in the red. So welcome, everybody, to another episode of the MxU Podcast. I'm Jeff Sandstrom, your host, and I'm here with Spencer, our CEO for MxU and co-host, and our good friend Dillan Howell from Event Ready, Weekend Ready. A lot of you know Dillan from a lot of things on social media and the Worship Classic Golf Tournament and other times at which you may have interacted with Dillan. So Dillan's been around MxU a bunch, filming some content with us, and lives here in Knoxville. So we decided to drag Dillan in today to just have a conversation about what's going on. So how are you, buddy?
And drag you did.
Kicking and screaming.
Yes, drag you did. I'm doing great. Life is good. Family's good. Just got back from a Cubs-Braves game. That was fun.
And the Braves won, which is excellent.
2-0.
But you were wearing a Cubs jersey.
I was wearing a Cubs jersey.
Almost got in a fist fight.
That's for you, Zach Brady.
And that is my fault. Because
the fight was?
Well, I wore a Cubs jersey.
Oh.
And so, therefore, going into a different,
it's enemy territory.
It's enemy territory.
But to be fair, the people you were with are pretty rabid Cubs fans.
They are very, very avid Cubs
So
fans.
you were just trying to support them.
Yes. And until I had to take my jersey off so they didn't get into a fight, I was just,
You did not. Did you actually end up
taking? I did not take it
That
off.
would have been amazing. Are you in shape right now?
Take your shirt off right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you in shape? What's going on underneath?
I wouldn't guess that anyone would look at me and go, he's in shape. I would say close to a grandma type body figure. And so I decided to keep it on.
Little dad bod going on?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, it's summertime.
And I felt good about it. And these young gentlemen, college kids that asked me to remove my jersey because I was in their territory, I respectfully declined it, as I should.
Did they teach you any new words?
There were a lot of words.
Yeah?
Yeah, they taught me new words. It was a good night, but it's been good. Everybody's good. I'm good. Family's good.
Well, you made it home safely.
I'm here safe.
You're here with us, which is great.
Yes. And yes, Cubs did get beat. So.
What's the stadium that they play in again?
It's called Truist Park.
Truist Park. Has it always been called that?
No. Originally it was, so way back when,
yeah,
it was the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium.
Okay.
Then they tore that down to build Turner Field before the 96 Olympics because that was the main Olympic track and field venue.
Yeah.
Became the Braves Stadium. Then a few years ago, they realized that most of their season ticket holders did not live in downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
So they built a new ballpark. They were going to build a new park anyway. So now it's kind of on the northwest side of town in Cobb County. It's called Truist Park, which is Truist is a bank. So they just have the name.
It's only like 2.5 hours from Knoxville. It's not bad.
It is a beautiful ballpark and a great experience.
It is
we parked a bus there for a while on the MxU tour.
There's a place called the Battery, which is kind of restaurants and shops that are right around the stadium. So there's great food, shopping, plenty of things to do for a family. So like if you come early in the day and do all that and then go to the game, it's
which we did.
Great experience.
And that's my second game there. I went to a Miami game a couple weeks ago, fell in love with it. We're not a baseball family at all. And I was like, I think we're a baseball family now. I built a little baseball field in my
You ready to start a travel
That's
team?
incredible.
Yeah.
You went to a Smokies game too, didn't you?
I went to Smokies game.
Yep.
And Zach and Brady and I are trying to line up a Smokies game. I think he said he wanted to take all of our kids to the game.
That's great. So the Smokies, for those of you who don't know, are the minor league affiliate that's based here in Knoxville. And from what I've heard, is an awesome experience as well.
It's fun.
Well, and they're building downtown.
Yeah.
So now you don't have to drive up to, meth country to watch a baseball game.
That's right. Meth country.
Let's be honest, though. Where in East Tennessee
is not
meth country?
Yeah, you're right. But anyways.
My house.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways. Well, Dillan, we have started a new segment on the MxU Podcast, which is Mixed Review with Jeff. So basically, folks in the community submit their service recording, whether it's video or just audio, whatever, changes from time to time. But we have a submission this week from Christ Chapel Bible Church. I think I got that right. So let's go ahead and play it, y'all.
Mother's Day, would you stand as we worship together this morning. Moms, we are so thankful for you, and a sweet reminder that today is that God gives us good gifts. And so we're going to worship in that truth this morning, that God is good, that he's faithful, and he's good on his word. So join with us as we worship today. Come on, let's sing.
Well, what do we think?
Yeah, man, I think there's so many things about it that I like. I think, obviously, the verse is a little low for her range, but I think because it's so exposed, you can still hear what she's saying.
Yeah.
The vocal sounds really good. I think the band, when the band comes in for the chorus and they come around the vocal, it's a really nice lift.
Yeah.
The tones feel good. I think, even in the intro, it's very clear, the melodic lick in the guitar and the tracks, it's like in the keys, it's a really well-balanced mix. It's very clear, okay, this is the song, this is where we're going. So it's good. I mean, in terms of the audio, I think it's good. The one thing I wonder about this and a lot of church mixes, I think some of it is, and I don't know their situation, if they're mixing from their front of house console or if they have a separate broadcast room.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where, because of the energy coming from the PA and because of the kind of high frequency clarity in a lot of PAs, sometimes I feel like mixes to the live stream translate as a little dark. So I'm wondering, is there anything they could do, especially with that initial vocal, it just sounds a little muddy because of her register.
Yeah.
Could we maybe find a way to brighten it up, maybe brighten the snare drum up a little bit, add a little sparkle to things? But, in terms of balances and tones, I think it feels great.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Dillan, you have a lot of experience in the church. We'll talk more later, but you largely from kind of a programming perspective. If you have audio advice as well, that might be great. But what are your thoughts?
I don't have audio advice. I don't have audio.
But it's funny. We saw this welcome, right?
Yeah.
It's obviously Mother's Day. She's talking about moms.
Yeah. Definitely have some thoughts on that.
Yeah. So here's an opening to a service.
Yeah.
So from a service programming standpoint, what would you say?
Yeah. A few things.
First impression.
A few things I liked about it was that we didn't necessarily have to create some big crazy opener.
Yeah.
Right. And openers are fine. Churches that do openers for big weekends, like a Mother's Day weekend, we all know Mother's Day weekend's attendance is typically spike.
Yeah.
And so
Moms like church.
Yep. And so moms bring families to church. We know that. And so for us, and baby dedication's a popular thing on Mother's Day as well. And so that's a whole other, as you get grandparents and grandmas and aunts and uncles. So we know that as those that create experiences.
Yeah.
So we want to sometimes navigate or draw towards a creative opener. Not necessarily needed in all situations. I do like that we did not do that in this situation, that we just kind of came in more settled and welcoming. In the welcome, some suggestions that I I still want the energy to be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a creative opener, but maybe hey, welcome to church, we're so glad you're here, but let her tone or his tone be a little bit higher, an elevated pitch voice.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? We're so glad you're here. Welcome. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. My name is... Even the worship leader can say that. My name is Sarah, and I have the opportunity to lead worship here. We're just so thankful you're here. We're going to stand to our feet, and we're going to just sing and praise God or whatever,
just
right?
a little bit of exhortation. And
there's a little energy there. It doesn't have to be an opener, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to do the opener thing. But in the sense of that kind of that number 2 song of a set list, like this song, maybe bring in a little bit more opener or a little bit more energy in the welcome would be something that I would.
And the band was supporting her, right? Which is super helpful.
Yeah.
Because if the band brings that energy, it doesn't feel like she's carrying the whole thing on her own.
Yeah. And I think vocally, it's interesting. Like, just because most songs that we do start with a solo and then it's the chorus where the BGVs come in.
Yeah.
If there's a moment where it's a little low in somebody's register or they can't quite pull it off with as much confidence, why not have everybody sing the verse?
Yeah.
Why not have some support vocally if it's needed, just to be able to, again, it adds a little bit of that energy because you got more people involved on stage and it helps support maybe, somebody who might be singing in a weaker part of the register.
And to define energy, people sometimes think energy is loud and big and flashy lights and creative openers. And I don't, yes, that creates energy, but I don't think that defines energy.
Yeah.
You can have energy very much so, just same as you would for that kind of opener creative experience right here in this intro of this song.
Energy can be intensity as much as it is excitement and volume.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think, the other thing I would say, because I if the church whose service this is watching and they see us reviewing, they're going to go, oh, that camera shot, right? You've got somebody tall standing in front of camera one, and even though it's out of focus, it's still kind of blocking your main downstage center.
Yeah.
And I could see them trying to cut around it.
Yeah.
It's like, first of all, I feel your pain, right?
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, that's right.
But from a programming standpoint, like when those kind of things happen, and it's not maybe ideal.
Yep.
Like, you as the producer in the room, what are you thinking about to try to get around those things?
Well, I can't remember if she was even looking into the camera or not. And those first welcoming few words of a Sunday experience, Saturday experience, whatever, church service, I want, and I know worship leaders specifically, we don't do a good job looking at cameras as much when we're acknowledging our broadcasting campus or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I get that naturally. Communicators are obviously held to a higher standard for that because of the message. But with worship leaders, I really like that eye engagement with that camera at front of house. Like, hey, welcome. Because what do we do naturally when we're in the room of a church service? We want to see the face of whoever's getting ready to lead us, and so we're looking at the screen anyways.
Right.
So you're not disconnecting us in the room.
Yeah.
You're just connecting those online. And so I would suggest with that. So I would want to see that camera 1, camera 2 shot really honed in on her tight, and she's acknowledging the camera. And if you want to get creative with the slides, like we saw, and the side shots. From a producer standpoint, obviously, we saw a silhouette in there, tall person standing. I know we all saw it. I would just, if we don't catch it in the preview before we go live, then let's just take it and then let's find a shot quickly and get out of that, so we're not distracting with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a professional to see that person standing there.
Yeah, slightly unrelated, but I want to shout out the guitar player. Thank you for playing the part.
Yeah.
Right? That's something that we're not doing enough. Like, as we watch more streams, like there's a reason the part was written the way it was written. Yeah. So let's play the part. And I thought he crushed it.
And not only did he play it, but it was in tune with a good tone.
And he was the most energetic person on stage.
Yeah.
I loved every time they cut to him. I was like, dude, this guy's having a great time.
Yeah.
And just to speak to that, like, it's important to know who to cut to. It's important to know who is bringing that energy as a show caller or a producer and or a video director or a switcher, whatever you call it. It's important to know, hey, who are the guys and girls on stage that bring the most energy, specifically in the first song. If you're looking for that energy, to cut to that individual that's bringing it, so that you can show that.
Yeah,
I think it's a good note.
So to the team from this church, great job. We know you, we love you. We're not going to say your name, but it's sorry. But if you want some great brisket, you can go there for that too. But yeah, I just want to encourage everybody. Like, we're going to do this to some degree on every episode. So if you have a service that you want to submit that you think would be good for critique, or if you really need some help, you could honestly say, hey, I'm really struggling. Like, how can we make this better? We'd love to talk about that too. So we're going to highlight some things that are great when we sort of scope out these, examples. Mm-hmm. And then we may dig into some things that maybe aren't so great, which is fine, because we all want to learn. We all want to get better together.
Yeah, we haven't had one yet that was super difficult to find positive. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, but we could find them if we looked hard
enough. We could find them.
Sure, we wouldn't have to look very far.
I don't know if people would send them, but we could find them for sure. But anyways, hey, tomorrow we've got a pretty exciting course coming out.
Yeah.
Waves LV1. Dylan, do you know what a Waves?
Yeah,
LV1
Waves
is?
LV1. It is it's a strategy.
It's a strategy.
But what do you think?
It's a ministry strategy.
For those listening that may not know much about audio, what
Those listening or those in this room?
What do you think? What do you think about the question that he just asked on those titles, those things?
Masterful.
Yeah, LV1.
I did ask before this started.
Yeah,
What is an LV1?
yeah,
That's my bad. I'm here to
okay.
learn. That's why I'm part of the MxU community. I'm here to learn.
yeah.
100%.
Teach.
100%.
Teach
So
us.
LV1 is a mixing console from Waves, and I was able to do a couple of courses recently around just training about LV1, its capabilities and functionality, how to set it up, workflows, building a mix on it, a lot of things, talking about some plugins, talking about just the hardware and software requirements. So we're excited to finally bring some LV1 training to the MxU community in a more kind of structured course-based way. So
Yep.
that'll be out tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we're really excited for people to engage.
Yeah. If you have an LV1, you got to watch it. Send it to your volunteers.
Are
Take a
LV1s
deep
popular in
dive.
churches? I mean, is it starting to come out? More
They
and more?
are, yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of it is because of the form factor. It's, really small scale, portable, highly flexible, affordable, yes, portable, all the audibles.
All the audibles.
And I do know enough that engineers love Waves.
Well, that's the thing is
yeah.
so many engineers will spend X amount of dollars to get Waves
Yeah.
integrated into whatever console they're using, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that it's right there in the box.
The whole
Pretty
console
fantastic.
is plug-in based.
Okay.
So it's, you won't understand that kind of stuff, but
We'll
We'll
you
work
had
on
me
you.
at console.
yeah, we'll work on you.
I do know they're C6.
That's good. That is a
C6.
plug-in. That
Thank
is
you.
a Waves plug-in.
That is the only one I know. And auto-tune.
Well, you go with, what's
In
most helpful.
Auto-Tune. Oh, that's too good.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So tomorrow, MxU community, you will get an email. And if you're a user, go watch it. If you're not, there's some free videos. You can check it out as well. Probably drop some on YouTube. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, can't wait.
Well, I think now to the main event. The question going into today that we had kind of written down that we wanted to talk about, and we will dive in greatly here, but Dylan, is the grass greener on the other side? That is the theme for today. You have a lot of experience.
You've quit a lot of jobs
You've
for other
quit a
jobs.
lot of
I've
jobs.
confused a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably not listening. If you are, we love you. Yeah, would love. When we knew we were having you on the show today, the idea was, man, Dylan could provide a lot of insight as he's got a tremendous amount of diverse experience. And you work with a ton of churches. You go into small churches, you go into large churches. You've worked in large churches, you worked in smaller churches, in various roles. So before we really get into that topic, just so people know that you're not just some dude we picked up off the street, what has give us a brief summary of the past 10 years, what you've done, or 15 years, however long you want to go back and date yourself. But
In 1988. when I was born.
1988.
You were born in 88?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, sir, Dad. What year were you born?
This is becoming my favorite bit with Jeff, is I just tell everybody.
It's not a bit. It's a pain point.
But it's my favorite thing. Like even at Philo, we were at Philo last week or whenever it was, and we got on stage together, and the first thing I said, I was like, by the way, Jeff is not my dad.
Yes. He's my uncle.
He's my uncle.
So encouraging.
So anyways, 88. That's
yeah.
good.
No, 15 years full-time ministry. It's really all I've known. I got saved and then went straight into ministry, basically is how it went down. And so I was a very much so just hands-on. Like, I don't know anything about anything. I don't know anything about ministry. I don't know anything about worship. I don't know anything about production. I don't know anything about anything. I don't know anything about Jesus. I'm here to learn. Like, I'm listening. Everybody just watching and listening, right? So that's kind of how I started. Dove in really, really quickly. Started at a Celebrate Recovery program as a worship leader. That's the only place that would take me. And they wouldn't take me now, that's for sure. And so
Did they have auto-tune at the time?
Oh no, dude, this was none of that existed.
Way back in the 90s.
That's when I was in high school. Yeah, so 2000s. And went from there to I don't even know where I went from there. I went there from another church to be a worship leader. Went from there to to joining a group out of Minnesota, and we did like 200 dates as a band, and I sang and played guitar for them. And I came home, started in church planting, did 4 years of church planting. That's where I learned how to work. And then I went from church planting to the big church in town, right in Knoxville. I was their next gen worship pastor. Did that for some time. Through some networking and knowing of people, I ended up in a church in Las Vegas for, I think, almost a little over 3 years, 4 years, whatever that was. And then from there, back home to to my home church, Faith Promise Church here in town, as the executive producer, worship production, and then transitioned out. So collectively, that was about a 15-year run. So I've, like you said, yes, I've even worked in small churches and worked in big churches. And I said church in Las Vegas. It was Central. I think people can probably put that together. But so yeah, I worked in some great organizations. I mean, really, some really top-notch organizations. And so that's my background. That's what I've done. Now, I do ministry. It just looks a little different. We work for a company called Event Ready, and we produce faith-based events. We partner with nonprofits and faith-based organizations and help them put on their events, like you guys, and like denominations and nonprofits and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what we do now.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about pop-ups. We'll talk about that later because you played an integral part in that.
Yeah.
But so as you look back at your time in ministry, whether you were volunteering, paid staff, whatever it might be, did you ever come across a moment, this is a loaded question, by the way, did you ever come across a moment where you might have thought the grass is greener down the road at such and such church?
Yeah, absolutely. I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was in those moments, what were, just because I think this is not an uncommon thing. I felt this. I know Jeff has felt this. Like, what's going through your head in those moments when it comes to, when you get to that point, whether it's exhaustion, whether it's you feel like you're being underutilized, whether there's not enough opportunity, whatever it might be, friction with your senior leader, like what for you, and you don't need to get super specific about, where, but what often, so people can kind of resonate and understand a little bit of the fact they might not be alone in that. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, there's something that's alluring. There's something shining down the road that's going, maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think the way we're wired as humans, ministry or not ministry, there always is something next, right?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, because sin can creep in when it just comes down to, if you want to start preaching, but sin can creep in.
You can preach here. That's okay.
Yeah, sin can creep in, and now the prettier girl down the street that I'm going to chase. So humans are built this way. So like when I'm in a church job or in a corporate America or whatever my case is, like something is always out there that's a little bit better than what I think I have, right? From perception, and what we think is perception is reality. And so it's like that's got to be better, right? So
especially nowadays with social media and being able to see everything that everybody's doing.
Everything the best of what we do is now viewable by most, right? Through social media and Instagram. So it just is what it is. So for me, the first thing most of the calls that I take today, whether they be through Weekend Ready or through just a small DM conversation on Instagram, the direction I'm pushing you is to do a simple self-audit. Where are you at today? Have you looked and done some things that you probably need to self-audit yourself in? How's my health? How's my spiritual health? Don't think about the church down the road, but just think about you for a second. How's my spiritual health? How's my physical health? How's my health at home? What's my relationships look like today with my supervisors, with my wife, with my kids? Do a true self-audit. Really figure out if you're just in a bad season of life or if it is related to your job and you need to go pursue a different opportunity, right? Start there. And here's why I believe that. Because like myself, just through my story, with me personally and those I know, we can very quickly develop a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And it's everyone else's fault except for mine. And if you don't self-audit, you aren't, is that a word? Aren't? I think it's a word now. 2024. Aren't.
Art's been a word for a long time.
See?
ARN.
But, growing up like back in the 80s and 90s, we were told don't use that word.
Who let this guy on our podcast?
The contraction form for are not has been around for centuries.
Really?
This is East Tennessee education at its finest.
I mean, Knoxville Public Schools right here. I'm like,
Oak Ridge.
Okay, well,
but I failed.
You're not making a case.
Yeah.
You're not making
I
a
wasn't good.
stronger case.
I don't know if that's an upgrade.
We were top 100 schools, and I graduated, and we went like.
This
way
is
down.
what I love about Dillan. This is why I was so excited today, because Dillan can joke and not take things too personally. I love it.
Top 100
Anyways.
schools, was that in the county?
Yep.
In the county. No, actually, Oak Ridge, I heard, does have
Yeah,
great schools.
when I was in school, it was top 100 in the nation. But
Yeah.
when I graduated, we went down. It's really we went.
So they were,
yes, and then I brought
good,
the
and
test
now they
scores down.
aren't.
Yes,
There's a lot. I mean, Oak Ridge,
there
it's
aren't.
like the
you
new-
didn't get it.
I got it.
are
You're-
not-
They were good, and now they aren't.
aren't.
No, they aren't.
No, they aren't.
What were we talking about?
Before you derailed the
Yes.
Well, you were talking
conversation?
about victim mentality. You can take on a victim mentality.
That's right.
Right? That's
Anyways, at the end of the day, when it comes to taking on a victim mentality, we can get there very quickly because we haven't done a self-audit on where we're at today. Now, you can do a self-audit, or the ones around you love and trust that you allow to speak into your life can also audit you. Audits can be a negative term, so whatever you choose, whatever words you want.
Here's the problem, though. Like, because I'm not pushing back.
Yeah.
I just want to be helpful. Like, most people who are in a bad spot are not going to be willing to go there.
Yeah.
In other words, okay, I hear Dillan say, "How's your home life? How's your work life? How's your spiritual life? How's your kids? They're fine.
Yeah.
No problem." But they're not being honest with themselves.
Sure.
So, a couple of tips for somebody who really needs to be kicked in the shins.
Mhm.
Like, why is it so important to submit yourself to this process?
Yeah.
And for somebody who's resistant, how can they maybe just push through that wall?
Yeah. And I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. This might come across a little harsh. It's probably time for you to grow up specifically. Like, if that's you, and you can't even open up to reality of what's going on in your life, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, that's not the way you were created.
Right.
Like, you should have a brother. I know I can call you two any time of the day, any time of night, and go, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. I need help."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and that doesn't come from a place of pride or arrogance, or it comes through just 15, 16 years of full-time ministry that I know I have to have people in and around me that can I trust, that I love. That's not everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that I don't trust and love and that I wouldn't respect to pour, and I would take offense to that because you don't know my life. You don't know what's right. So you have to build that community. It might even be outside of your church. Who's in your network?
Yeah.
Right. And we'll get to pop-ups in a little bit, but that's one of my favorite things about these pop-ups is that we're creating this new sense of community in some of these towns where hopefully that honesty is coming out.
Yeah. Well, Proverbs says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but blessed is he who listens to counsel."
Yeah. That's
Like,
exactly
we all need helpful input. We all need counsel.
That's right.
So if you don't have a trusted friend, if you don't have a colleague, if you don't have a boss, a wife, somebody who can be honest enough with you that when you say, "Hey, how am I doing? Like, I think it's this way. I think we might need to consider this, but what do you think?" Like, if you don't have that, you got to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your responsibility, honestly. And before you were to make any sort of big move like changing church, even if you're not employed and you're just a volunteer, changing church communities is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I think today where we are, people treat that pretty flippantly. Like, "Oh, I'm just going to go church shopping." But like, if you're really invested in a church community, I look at like my grandparents' generation. Like, my grandparents have been a part of their church for 40 years. Like, my dad was raised in that church. So I guess longer than 40 years. All that to say, because my dad's probably closer to your age, Jeff. Anyways, so all that to say, I'm constantly amazed at how quickly we can just peace out. And I've done it. I mean, there has been many times where I've just, I'm over here now. And I look back at those times and I remember praying to God, "Oh, help me understand, what's next for me, Lord," or whatever. But was I in the Word? And was I dedicated?
You're self-auditing yourself.
Yeah,
You're
was
asking
I,
questions.
because how
actively
is
seeking,
God?
yes.
How does
Yeah.
God speak to us? He speaks to us through His Word. He can speak to us through those who are around us, the counsel that He's placed in our life. But if we don't have either, if we don't have wise counsel, I mean, and we're not reading the Word, we're making a decision. At least for myself, I'll speak for myself. I made a lot of decisions based on emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
Well, especially when you're changing a church as part of your vocation, it gets even more complicated. I mean, you moved from here across the country and back, and both of those moves had good reasons.
Yep.
But some of it could have been trying to chase that shiny thing.
That's right. I think we get confused when we join ministry. We think we join ministry to pursue our skills and talents. And that's not why we join ministry. If you're in ministry for any other reason but for people, then you're not really doing ministry. Like, let's just be raw and real. That is the reality of what Jesus has called us to do. And there's very skillful people, obviously, and we all want to be really good at what we do and what our skill sets are. But we often confuse calling and skills. And I think when we get confused in those regards, and I view the next shiny tool down the street, and I say, man, that church is the church that is 3 campuses. My church is 1 campus. I want to be a part of a multi-site church. That church has a massive D&B line array. This church, we're still using this, and I don't like that. I deserve something a little bit better. I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, and I've gotten better at my skill. And they have the newest and baddest new consoles, and they have a big staff. And I just would love to be a part of that, man. I'm sick of being the only guy that does everything in my church, and we can't afford duct tape. We can't afford gaff tape. We use duct tape. It's like, I get that. That's where I was at, in church planning. It was like, we couldn't afford gaff tape. We had duct tape. Yeah. And then I went to the next church, and I'm like, oh, we got gaff tape. This is awesome. Like, this is the real deal. We've made it. But that's when we get confused, I think, in calling and versus our skills. And so my encouragement is remind yourself daily that when you wake up and you're in ministry for people. I heard something that's definitely not something I've made up, but I heard it, and it was just a reminder to me. When you join ministry, was the first thing on your mind your next promotion? For me, it wasn't. Like, I remember when I put my face in my Bible and I said, God, whatever you want me to do. This is 15, 16, maybe longer than that. It's when I was in high school. God, whatever you want me to do, I am all yours. That was my prayer. Now, I play guitar and I sang, starting to do that, but that was my prayer, because that was who I wanted to be, right? And then through this confusion of growing up and focusing on my skill set and trying to get to the next baddest and biggest church, blah, 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 that's when I can start seeing that I need to self-audit myself.
Yeah.
And remind myself what my calling is. But back to the grass is greener on the other side, and we've heard the term a million times. The grass is not green on the other side. It's greener where you plant and grow and provide nutrients and water and blah, 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 blah. I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's some things inside of your organization and culture that drew you there. Like when I took this job in this organization, I really liked it. What changed about that? Audit yourself. Ask those questions.
And sometimes those changes aren't just about you.
Yep.
Sometimes the organization changes.
I was going to say, you can't control it. Sometimes
vision
you can't control
changes.
It. Right.
Leadership changes.
That's
there may be real reasons to make a change.
That's right.
So we're not saying don't ever make a change.
Right.
It's just in assessing your need for change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't just chase
exactly.
something that's bright and shiny.
That's right.
Because honestly, for most people in most situations, the old humorist Irma Bombeck was famous for saying, you know what? The grass is brown on both sides.
That's right.
There's always going to be compromises. There's always going to be flaws. There's always going to be problems.
That's right.
And another aspect, you talk about the grass being green where you nurture it and water it. Sometimes, because the phrase is the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes the other side of the fence in the farm is where all the BS is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's thriving in green grass is because it's getting fertilized.
Yeah.
But I don't want to chase BS.
That's right. That's right.
So just having perspective, I think, is what we're talking about.
And at the other side,
yeah,
to add to that, God may not be ready for you to climb that fence because you haven't figured out how to work your own yard yet. So he needs you in your current pasture, trying to figure out how to get that grass green and how to figure out how to do things that he's trying to develop you in before he gives you the strength to climb that fence to get to the other side.
Yeah. Again, not to be overly spiritual or whatever, but we've talked about this before in some of the content that we've done around here. David was anointed king.
That's right.
15 years before he had a platform. Mm-hmm. And what was he doing in those 15 years? He was out in the field taking care of the sheep. Mm-hmm. So just because he was being prepared for his next big thing, he didn't get it.
That's right.
For a long time. Mm-hmm. So don't feel like you have to just strive and chase, and you may need to stay planted where you are for a while
just to be developed,
just to be prepared.
That's right.
Yeah.
And yes, and I think too, we talked about this earlier on Instagram. I think because of the pace sometimes churches hire, which is really, really quick, especially in the creative production worship space.
Because they've got a problem
they got to have it
be
fixed now.
Yeah.
So what can happen sometimes is they hang out all the really cool things about our organization. These are all the cool things. Like you're going to get a $15,000 pay increase. Your benefits are going to be a little bit better. You're going to now lead a team. Look how big our church is. Look how awesome our gear is. You know, this is where you need to be. You're good enough to be here. And so you don't even really know, right? If you go to Zillow and you type in a house in the area, it's going to be the best photos. It's going to be that grass is going to be green. It's going to be the best photos because we're trying to sell the house.
Right.
So sometimes, not all the time, sometimes organizations are trying to sell you the best side of them. So what you are going to get anywhere, and we can all agree to this, even with the listeners, is that, or viewers, is that there's always going to be problems inside of an organization that's led by people.
Right.
It's like the same amount of problems, just different.
That's exactly right. And some of them might be bigger, and some of them might be smaller. But there's always going to be problems, always going to be tension to manage. And I feel like when you can have a maturity level and go, hey, I've self-audited. I know where I'm at spiritually. I know what my life looks like. I need to stay here just for a season to grow a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's so mature. I think God will honor that, and eventually, you know, if it is moving on. I mean, I got a situation right now. It's not inside the church world. I got a buddy who's a cop, and he is now going to be a Department of Energy contractor. He's going from very low money to very good money, and there's different reasons why he's making that. You got one side of the community that's like, you know, don't do it, you know, pursue your calling. You always want to be a cop. And you got his family that's saying, hey, we can't afford for you to be a cop anymore.
Yeah.
A, we can't pay our bills. And B, we don't know if you're ever going to come home.
You're putting yourself in danger every day.
So for him,
Yeah.
the grass may be greener on the other side because he's been doing it for 20 years and he's ready for something different. And if that's you, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a do or die situation. I don't think anyone's going to view you negatively for making a decision what's better for your family.
Yeah.
Right. But if you go and you carry toxins and you're a culture shifter, but in the wrong direction,
Right.
that's when you do a self audit.
Yeah. If you're chasing something different because of your unhealth and because you just need to kind of satisfy something in you that's going to bring unhealth to the next place,
Right.
that's not the way to do it. But how much better would it be if you were actually tending to your own
That's right.
field, your own garden, and got to the point where you were actually not chasing something, but you were being pursued.
Right.
Like you've got these 3 churches now who are going, man, Dillan, I've seen what this guy's about. I've heard about their team. Let's see if we can get somebody like that to come to us.
Right.
That's a completely different perspective
That's right.
than you trying to chase them down. It's like, you know, I've done the work. I'm professional. I'm excellent. I'm a good leader. Now people want to pursue me.
Yeah.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. When you leave your current situation, do you leave back a legacy, or are they applauding you out the door? That's 2 different things.
Yeah.
And if they're plotting you out the door, more than likely your next organization, next church is also going to say, we'll be okay when you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not where I want to be.
Right.
That's super
Well,
helpful.
On the volunteer side of things too, just because we haven't talked about that dynamic much, I think it is important to call out because it can be pretty easy when you're in a paid ministry position, and a lot of this, unfortunately, can sometimes just come down to your employment. You know, like is my family making enough money? Am I being overworked? Whatever. The list goes on. And we often look through that lens because that's a lot of the experience we have, right? But I also look through the lens of a volunteer who's been serving in a church for 15 years, and they're wondering, like, man, I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen 5 different tech directors roll through this church. Mm-hmm. I've served under 8 different worship leaders that have come and gone, and I've stayed here. And which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But it also can be a toxic thing, right? Because it can come out of a loyalty to man. That's like, well, I'm here because pastor asked me to stay faithful. There's nothing wrong with faithfulness, right? But what is it flowing from? Mm-hmm. Is it coming from out of a place of loyalty to man or loyalty to God? Mm-hmm. And if you're in a place where you're volunteering in a church and you're wondering, man, I don't know if this is the place for me. Very practically, like, are they teaching the Word of God? Are you growing in your gifts? Like, are they allowing opportunities for you to grow in the gifts that God has given you?
Yeah.
And to be able to serve in a way that you're not serving man, you're serving God through the local church. Mm-hmm. I think most of what happens in the church today is through volunteers.
Yeah.
And even led by volunteers,
big or
oftentimes,
small.
Right?
Big or
and
small.
what's crazy is we find that volunteers are the ones that stick around longer than staff, right? And it starts making you start to wonder, why is that? You know, is it because I'm going to look at my own personal journey. I know I have made decisions on where I'm going to church based on my employment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Oh, totally.
So I've said, well, I'm going to go to that church now because I got a job offer.
Or I can be a contractor because they need me.
Yeah. And is that for myself? I don't think that's what God has for me. I think I need to evaluate where's my church first? Where's my community?
Yeah. There were a lot of times where, we had to untangle in my family what's best for me and my career versus what's best for my family and how we get plugged into a church.
Yeah.
And those answers were not always the same church. So it's so important to try to disentangle some of that because it can turn into unwanted baggage pretty fast.
Yeah. Volunteers are there because that's probably where they experience their first life change moment.
Yeah.
It's more than just, it's not even a job for them. This is where I've experienced, this is where my kids were baptized. This is where I got saved. This is where my marriage was restored. For staff, I'm not saying that's not the case. I mean, we know tech directors, production guys, creatives that are at their churches for 20 years because they have experienced their personal life change there.
And they've developed community there.
That's their home. Like that's who they are. That's for me personally. That's the reason why I'm always drawn back to my home church here in town because that's where I've experienced most of my life change. Yeah. So when I went in Las Vegas and worked for Central, which is an incredible organization, it was a little bit easier for me to leave the organization because that's not where a lot of my life change took place. That's not where
and they didn't have a softball team.
They didn't have a softball team. Is that an inside joke they don't know about?
Were you telling me about the softball teams in the Baptist
just
churches?
in the South, but Southern Baptist churches and their softball teams.
And the basketball gyms.
Basketball gyms.
I want to talk about those basketball gyms.
Family Life Center.
You didn't hear about this yet. Nate on our team, he and I last Thursday went to play basketball at a church in Fountain City, Methodist church in Fountain City, and Nate tore. So 2 years ago, Nate tore his I think it was his left Achilles. Well, recovered Thursday night, tore his right Achilles. So
unbelievable.
Stay away from those
church basketball gyms.
Methodist basketball gyms. Or church ones.
Just church ones.
Has nothing to do with Methodist.
just Methodist church ones.
Just those. But anyways,
I just derailed the conversation. Sorry about that.
All that to say, but I think truly my personal conviction is that the solution to a lot of this is to pursue godly community, right? Like a community that you can go to when these situations come up and seek wisdom from, but also maybe these situations won't come up if you are plugged into godly community because you're like, no, this is my church. This is where I go to church.
Yeah.
So transitioning a little bit into what we're doing with pop-ups and what we're trying to, I think that is the heart of a lot of why we're doing pop-ups.
Yeah, and can I just say real fast before we get on pop-ups? Yeah. I did absolutely experience life change at Central. That's not what I was saying, just for the listener. But I want to bring clarity. But where I was experiencing salvation and where my kids experienced salvation,
it feels like home.
That was not there, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier for me to leave, and that's the whole idea of just drawn back to the place. I think that's why volunteers are slower to move because it means a little bit more to them than it might staff.
Yeah,
they've got deeper roots.
That's right.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
So MxU Pop-Ups. So you've heard us talk about it a bunch lately. We've kind of reformulated our live event strategy for this year. We didn't do a big conference this year. We kind of focused on more of a micro kind of regional event. So we're doing 6 pop-ups all over the country. Dillan has helped us facilitate all the logistics and planning of these events. So we've done a couple so far. We've got a few more to go throughout the year. And it's been great. Yeah. So first, thank you for your investment in the community and helping that. What's been your favorite part just about the format, other than listening to me talk?
I didn't know what you were going to ask.
I was going to say, other than kind of producing the events.
Yeah, other than
Dylan, he's kind of our producer. It's true though. Like I'm okay with that. I'm a hard guy to offend, and you'll hear about it when you do.
I feel like you're getting railed today.
I'm getting roasted today.
That's because Jeremy's not on the podcast.
Well, it's okay.
Oh man.
Just to give people context, though. Like,
what's my favorite part?
What are some things about that day that stick out to you as, oh man, this is so
There is
helpful?
something about being around pastors, church staff, church production guys, worship guys. Even if I was probably in a room of student pastors, I just love being around pastors and church guys and girls. I just do. I don't know why. It's just always been part of me. That hence the worship classic and putting on an event and the trips that we host. And I just love being around those guys. What I love even more is watching something that is lacking significantly inside the church community, specifically in our community. I think MxU has done one of the, if not the best job, one of the best jobs at now bringing the community together. And that's what I'm seeing happening at Pop-Ups. What we're seeing is because of the style, right? We're doing a roundtable event where we go call it your keynote or whatever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes on stage, and then we open it up to the tables. And we want the tables really driving conversation through our host and our partners. And what we're seeing is we're like, oh, you're the church 20 minutes down the road, and you're the church here. We're kind of celebrating the same things, and we're kind of needing help in the same areas. Yeah. Why are we not working together?
How do we not know?
How did we
each
not
other?
know to network?
Right.
And so that's one of my favorite parts, just to see the communities, the towns, the churches coming together, and just reminding ourselves that, hey, you might have seen it on a cool podcast or in a cool Instagram post, but we actually do need to come together and be one in our community. And when I need help with something, I now have a few phone numbers I can reach out to get advice from or wisdom. I like that a lot about our Pop-Ups and what they're doing for community.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good, bro. Yeah. So we were gonna play a segment just of the Pop-Ups to give viewers and listeners a taste of what it looks like if they're still on the fence. Let's roll to that, and then we'll wrap up.
And just real quick, this is just a segment from our Q&A.
Yeah.
So this is an audience member giving a question, and then there's me and a few of our partners.
Complete portable setup. We're in a lobby here.
Yep. And we're just answering the audience member's question.
Yeah. Don't mind the video quality either.
Kind of a topic that's been touched on a little bit is kind of bridging that gap between the tech booth and the platform. And I know that mainly applies to like audio engineering, but how does that look holistically, no matter what tech position you're in, of kind of bridging that understanding that there might be a gap there and just kind of having healthy communication between whether it be worship leaders, music directors, whatever position is kind of on the other end of things.
What would you add to that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, time plus behavior equals trust. And so I think that it's really important, and the fact that you're asking the question already shows a heart that's like, man, I'm seeing something here. And I think that that's actually a really incredible thing, but it's a matter of going, okay, who do I not know? Who do I not know their kids? Who do I not know more about, what they care about? Whether it's leadership or someone on the worship team or any of that, there's a desire here for relationship, which is actually incredible. We're created for connection. That's what, it's all about. And so ultimately, starting to get curious about someone else really starts to begin to pave the way for that place of relationship. And I think that most of the time, we find ourselves sometimes paralyzed in this place of like, well, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I should do that. I don't know. We're writing a lot of story and a lot of narrative in our head, when in reality, we should probably act on that thing that's within our head that's saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you just schedule a meeting or a coffee, right? Hey, why don't you start with just saying hello to someone and asking them how their day's going, those types of things. And then ultimately from there, you have an opportunity to start building that relationship. I think a lot of times, though, we think, oh, they're in leadership. I'm down here. This is, we're probably not going to be able to, step forward into that. I think that's terrible. As Jeff was talking, I think one of the things we find often is we're just trying to help facilitate a conversation around what winning looks like between production and worship and creative and leadership. And sometimes it's shocking to me how siloed I see churches really are, because we really are all one team. We're all moving in the same direction to create space for people to experience who Jesus is. A God of love. He's incredibly kind. Let's just go through the character and nature of God. And I go, does our staff reflect that? And if not, can we start to have some conversations to really begin to see maybe God do a work relationally inside the church so that we're actually a more healthy community and we're representing Jesus in a more healthy way? And I think that relationship and paving the way for relationship and continually doing the hard work to get along with people, I think is something Scripture talks a lot about. And so the fact that you're asking the question, I think is pretty fantastic.
That's great. I was thinking of, as you're talking about that, I was thinking of a specific person that I used to butt heads with all the time, and I think we're good now. But I
do we need to talk about it on the podcast?
Where's
Brian?
Brian?
Throw his name out there and like.
But what I was going to say was, and a lot of times this does happen, is I kind of found myself convicted because I kind of set them up for failure because I didn't like them before it even started. they didn't hire the guy I wanted. They hired this guy instead. And so I kind of had this barrier. And what helped me break that down was hanging out and getting outside of the context of being in the trench together. So whether that's, grabbing a fishing pole or going to the golf course or whatever, like doing something outside of the context of the trenches, sometimes you're like, I actually do like this person. It's kind of like, the joke about like when your kids go to sleep, like you and your wife are like, oh, I like you again, like now that we're not arguing with the kid. It's like the same kind of thing. We need that.
Yeah, I would, all of what they said is great. I think the practical part of it is you cannot build community if it's the only time you see each other is on Sundays. So that it doesn't happen on Sunday mornings. It's what we did is we onboarded every volunteer saying, hey, Sundays are go days. Sundays are like short conversations. We're going from one thing to the next, and we're like run through and sound checks, and hey, we're going to be short with each other. There's some things that probably get said, like open, honest communication, feedback, all those things happen. But what we had to do is we had to create a space for our teams to get together. Organically, it just doesn't happen. We're all wired so different, and we have all of our silos. And Sunday morning is a silo machine. And so we had to create team nights. That's what we did. That was our strategy. Every other month, team nights with the worship team and technical team came together for dinner and band rehearsal. So we created around it, created some value that like everybody valued, and said, okay, we're going to be really intentional on that night to be in spaces and in tables and creating conversations. And then something I challenged my staff team was, hey, just start asking people what they do for a living. That's like one of the best questions. And then therefore it's like identify like, oh, so-and-so does this, so-and-so does this, and like just start asking, and then therefore it organically starts going. But don't bust your butt to try to make it happen on Sunday, because it's just not going to happen until you create those outside moments.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's so important. You have to know the names of those that are on your team. I can imagine
such a simple thing.
I can imagine a quarterback just identifying someone by their title. Yeah. Hey, running back. Hey, tight end. It's like, no, you know your names, man. You're a team. Yeah. Like, goes a long ways. I at a church, and I was doing my thing, and our front house engineer got on talkback and said, hey, guitar player 2 or rhythm 1 or whatever the title was on PCO. And I just remember going, his name's right there.
Yeah.
Like, call him by his name. I think titles are so damaging inside of the church, but that's just my opinion anyways.
Yeah. Pop-ups have been awesome.
Yeah.
We've got 4 more to go. And Dillan, you've seriously have made it happen for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
And we got 4 more to get it even better. So
I know it's been fun. Columbus is next.
Yeah. So if you want to join us at an MxU pop-up, which I think you should, go to getmxu.com and get a ticket. Mm-hmm. They're going fast, but we still have availability. Mm-hmm. The cool thing is we're going to places we've never been before. So places like Seattle, like we've never been to the Pacific Northwest with an event.
Yep.
So I can't wait to see what's happening in the church up there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Dylan, how can people keep up with you? And if they need your help with anything, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, man. You want just give my cell phone number?
Yeah, you can give out your cell phone right
865-466-0894.
You're like Bob Goff.
You have it.
You went straight Bob Goff.
If you bug me, I just won't text you back. But you can have it. Text me. You can go to my website. You can go to Event Ready website.
You have a
website. You can go to my personal website. I don't care.
How many websites do you have?
I have a lot. And I would like to personally talk about my personal podcast in this opportunity. And 8s and 10s of listeners. I remember when I said that in the office here. Your staff made fun of me, and it really hurt my feelings.
We'll talk to him about that.
No, but yeah, I'm just, I don't care. I just hit me up through Instagram, DM me. I'm so honored when anybody just says anything to me, like listens to a podcast, or like I don't know, it just keeps me going and keeps me motivated.
All right, well, we'll put your Instagram.
That is not a plug on my podcast. My podcast is at hold right now, so don't. I was totally kidding.
But we will put your Instagram and your website and your cell phone number.
You don't even have to do
in the
all
show
that.
notes.
Yeah, we'll put your cell phone number in the show notes. You'll start getting texts for, do you need a credit line today or whatever?
I get those already.
Refinance your home.
I get that already, so whatever, just tack it on.
Oh, man. You're like family around here. We should definitely have you back. I mean, you're here all the time.
I'm here, man.
And this has
Well,
been
nothing
fun.
else to do.
This has been fun.
Actually, what's cool about this facility is I walked this facility and toured it and was the one that said y'all need to buy this building. Remember
That's
that?
true. Before I moved here, you were
right.
kind of our man on the ground.
Yep.
You'll yeah, this has been fun. Next time you guys can gang up on me, or we can
we'll go
ease
with-
off
yeah,
of Jeff.
Yeah,
But anyways,
I can take it.
you can.
all right.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.